Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Anyway, shall we get started on chapter 29, Something Flickers?
Let's do it.
And our symbol is the anchor and the sword. Now this would be sea folk?
Egyanan.
Sea captains, right. Okay.
It's Domon and Egyanan. This is the people that actually do cool boat shit, not the people that are just annoying with boats.
I love that classification. They do cool boat shit. They're not just annoying with boats.
I am a knower of nautical things. I'm not, actually. I went on a great field trip where I got repeatedly schooled on the difference between a boat and a ship, and I still couldn't tell you the difference.
I once nailed the captain of the sailboat in the face with the boom when he told me to release something, and I released the wrong thing.
Oh.
And knocked him off the ship.
Oh.
So, yeah. I've been sailing. I was a teenager who had never really been on a boat before, and he just assumed, he was like, pull that. And there was like 2 ropes, and I pulled the wrong one, you know?
Well, good for him. That's how you learn not to be a dumbass. Most people know. That's not on you. You were the ignorant person who didn't know things. It was on the knowledgeable person to anticipate that.
Well, yeah, when I lived in Norfolk, I got on a couple of sailboats and had some fun, but I couldn't say I learned anything.
Pants, I genuinely don't care. We get beautiful icons every time. It's all good.
We appreciate the work you do so much that we there's no bar here that you have to jump over, right? You've cleared it by leaps and bounds. I don't know if we can say how much. We should really say like how much we should appreciate Pants and Little Jen for doing the chapter icons for the last few books, right? Like, yeah, it has been such a relief in time, and also like it doesn't feel like we're taking other people's art. It feels like we're taking something unique to our podcast. It really feels like a huge contribution. So I really can't thank you enough for the work you put in.
Yeah, it's really unique and distinctive to our podcast, and everyone's custom, and it's just a really thoughtful thing to get back from our community. And started with Lilligen, and then the baton got passed off to Pants, and it's just really, really cool to have that kind of immediate reciprocity, so it's not such a parasocial relationship, right? There's like, we're actually doing things for each other, and that's very, very neat. And I have no idea how many people actually follow our social media and see the pictures and appreciate them, but I've started putting them in Patreon, so they're at least getting saved somewhere coherent, unlike social media.
Should we go back and replace them as the chapter icons instead of the header icons, or do we like using? Well,
the chapter icons are generally what people are going to see in their podcast
feed.
Players, right?
Right.
And it's like smaller space. Though I guess that it's true with the Patreon feed too. If you're looking at it on your phone or having the RSS feed come through to your thing.
I'd love feedback on that. I'd love if anybody out there had an opinion on whether or not we should stick with chapter icons, or whether you'd like the more unique, I'd call it Instagram art that we've been putting out, the social media art that we've been dropping.
Yeah. If anyone out there has strong opinions about that, let us know.
When we're using like other people's artwork sort of and then linking to them, I didn't feel right including it in the podcast. But if we're using something custom built for the podcast, then I feel like that might be the perfect place for it. Okay, shall I read us in?
Yeah, please do.
This do be madness. Doman rumbled from where he stood with his arms folded, as if blocking the way out of the wagon. Maybe he was. His jaw was thrust forward belligerently, sticking out a beard that was trimmed short, but still longer than the hair on his head, and he was working his hands like a man thinking of making fists, or grappling with something. A wide man, Domon, and not as fat as he looked on first glance. Mat wanted to avoid fists or grappling, if he could. He finished tying the black silk scarf around his neck, hiding his scar, and tucked the long ends into his coat. The chance that there was anyone in Jurador who knew about a man in Ebu Dar wearing a black scarf, well, the odds seemed good, even discounting his luck. Of course, there was always his being Ta'Viren to be factored in. But if that was going to bring him face to face with Suroth or a fistful of servants from the Terrasen Palace, he could stay in bed with a blanket wrapped around his head, and it would still happen. Sometimes you just had to trust luck. The trouble was, when he woke this morning, the dice had again been tumbling in his head. They were bouncing off the inside of his skull still.
Very nice.
Thank you.
So this is the beginning of our, what did you say, 22 mentions of the dice rattling in his head?
Yes. I was looking for when the dice stopped rattling in this chapter. So I searched dice in the ebook and counted 22 references to the dice rattling, bouncing, roaring in his head. This is gotta be the most mentions of dice in any chapter ever.
So many dice.
And it's just this dice start at the beginning of the chapter and end at the end of it, right? It's a single chapter dice roll. And it ends with the death of Rena.
Yeah, it's entirely about her decision to attempt to escape, her near success in her bid to get away. Like, the dice are completely focused around her bid for freedom and to betray them in exchange for her own life and agency back, right? She's trying to go back. She's trying to put it all back the way it was before somehow. And this set of dice is letting him know that that is a very real possibility he needs to deal with. The next paragraph includes him talking about maybe he needs embroidery and there's a little touch of lace and want to look good. And, like, he's getting his rakish, like, foppish kind of, Matt the Peacock moment here where it's like, Matt, you've changed so much. You will deny that you've changed to my face, and yet this paragraph exists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like Domon's trying to talk Matt out of taking Tuon shopping, right?
Absolutely.
That's what he's saying, is this do be madness, right? That's his whole point, is like, hey, why there's a town here, and Matt's like, hey, we're going into the town and we're going shopping, and Domon's like, what, are you crazy? Like, there's Ebudar all over the place.
Yeah, and because Tuon is doing this partially because she'd like to have clothing appropriate to her station, but partially because she's testing both Matt's trust in her and his ability to keep her safe, which means she's picking really, really hard challenges for him to overcome. She's deliberately making things that look like madness for him to navigate, because that's the only way that he'll be worthy of the Daughter of the Nine Moons. And so for someone practical and stolid and too old for this shit like Domon, it do be madness.
Well, and it's also, I think Aeginin sort of expresses, like, she's like, you don't really think you're going to marry her, right? I know you did one side of the marriage, but that's dumb. She's never going to say the other half, right? Not knowing, of course, that Matt has, shall we say, inside knowledge.
Yes. He's been spoiled, one might say.
Nice. I like that. And she has been as well, right? She strongly suspects he has fulfilled several parts of the prophecy about the man she's going to marry, and is just waiting for him to confirm the last one or two items, which is basically, he will carry you away and then let you go. And so far, he's carried her away. Yeah.
I also have always interpreted that as, like, he's setting her free from the constraints of being the Tuon that landed. Like, not free from her gilded cage of being Daughter of the Nine Moons, but free from the traps inherent in being in the entourage of the blood. Free of the traps of being surrounded by Deathwatch guards that Semirog has organized, that Suroth has managed, right? Like, he gives her the ability to come back to them on her own terms and thus take actual control. Maybe that's a little bit convoluted, but he really sets her free of... It's kind of like that scene where she's got the big bulky garment on, but it's got a bunch of, like, quick, like, Velcro straps or whatever, so she's able to pop out of it. I feel like she was in that, and then Matt is like, what if I yoinked you out and gave you just the ninja outfit to go running around in and actually be badass? And then she chooses to go back, obviously. But, like, yeah, he gets her out of a bunch of sticky situations, which is setting her free in a different way. And then... she's a butthole.
Can I just say how recently I realized that her nickname for Matt, Notai, is not I? Because he loses an I?
What? No. No.
Notai? No. Not I?
No. No.
That's what it is.
I hate everything.
And maybe it has been brought up before, but I forgot about it.
I don't like Tuon. I don't like her. I don't like her. Oh, and now Pants is being like, here's an interpretation that's even worse. I like her even less. Not I, like depersonalization.
Oh, like he's not an individual anymore because she named him.
But it's supposed to be an old tongue word. She's not supposed to be making a pun.
No, I think honestly that's just Jordan making the pun. I don't think she's aware of that. I think it's honestly Jordan just being a bit of a dad jokester in that moment.
Ugh. Turning over the tables and stomping out.
And you know why I think it's a Robert Jordan dad joke? Because I'm laughing at it and you're rolling your eyes at it. And that's always what happens when the dad jokes come around. So
very, very good point.
Yeah, so Matt, the question is, does she mean to marry me? The strangest people marry sometimes. I mean, clearly he's just like, yeah, of course I'm trying to marry her. Are you kidding me? Like, that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and also it's funny because Egyanan and Bale are going to get married soon, and Matt knows they're a thing, but he still feels a little bit sideswiped by them getting married. Like when they do come back married, he's like, wait, what? Seriously? So, the sentiment is a nice little call back forward to the fact that that's about to happen. Oh, Matt says a line that's very reminiscent of Brigida here. When you knew you were going to hang, the only thing to do was grin at the noose. This is why Matt and Brigida get along well. They have that kind of humor.
There is a little bit of that fatalism. But it's, of course, the reference to him hanging, right? Like, he's already done that once. So he's got a point of reference.
Sure, definitely. Much like Brigida remembers that she's been hung in past lives, I'm sure.
I also like here, trust is the sound of death. That's a reference to an old song.
Yeah, that was in his head. It was a very poignant chapter that was in his head books ago. But
Many books ago.
Nice callback to that. Sort of letting you know that for all the fact that he has dozens of men's memories in his head, there are parts that are sticking and amalgamating to him and becoming him, like the central figure, rather than just being echoes of other people's memories in his head. There are parts that are staying around.
So that was Lord of Chaos when that was referenced.
Yeah, that was books ago. Many books ago. Many books ago.
Color of Trust. Give me your trust, said the Aes Sedai. On my shoulders I support the sky. Trust me to know and what to do best, and I will take care of the rest. But trust is the color of a dark seed growing. Trust is the color of a heart's blood flowing. Trust is the color of a soul's last breath. Trust is the color of death. Interesting. Trust is the sound of death.
There's several verses.
Oh, that's the next stand. There's several verses. So it goes sound of death, death, and taste of death. They've got 3 verses listed here.
Yeah, I would imagine that the original In-World is probably like many verses long.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and they just invent new ones all the time.
Right, anytime your heart gets broken, you add a new stanza. It's like a collective song. Yeah, Pants, agree. That would sound really good in a deep bass with booming drums for the background, a la Look Down from Les Mis. Definitely agree.
I also feel like the trust is the sound of death is something that happens because of the dagger, and it's the corruption, right? That's the paranoia of the dagger in his head. And sometimes he actually has to fight against that and be like, no, this is going to be my wife. I need to trust her.
Well, yeah. And what the dagger is the most human of emotions taken to their absolute extreme, right? There's definitely a dynamic feedback of like, it's a human thing to be paranoid. To that degree, not so much. That's a little toxic, Eridhall. But like, yeah, it's like Moghedien's weave on Leandrin to live. Like, if the corruption or the compulsion or whatever it is leaning into something that you are deeply inclined to do anyway at like a biological level, it's going to be really hard to ever shake that. No matter how much healing you go through, no matter how many weaves get undone, like you're like that now. You're just a little extra paranoid. You're just a little extra gonna remember that song. And yeah, she's really worth not trusting. So it's one of those, like, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you.
Oh, you really don't like Tuon, do you?
I do not. I really don't. And I may have some slight show goggles on because I hate the Seanchan more than I thought was possible to hate them. I thought I hated them. And then episode whatever the fuck that was happened. And now I hate
Season 2, episode 6.
I hate them so much more. I didn't know I had this much capacity for hate. So yeah, I don't want Tuon anywhere near any of my Emmons Field 5, please and thank you.
Yeah, there was something particularly creepy about.
Yeah. We'll talk about it in detail when we get there, but because Renna is in that episode and is in this chapter, like, my hatred for Renna is definitely got show goggles on it now. You know, like, this is Renna in a totally different part of her arc that I'm sure won't happen in the show at all, because I really hope she dies in this season. But, like, you know, Renna and Tuon both can just go take a hike, take a short hike off a tall drop, or however that saying goes.
Ooh, when do you think we're going to meet Tuon in the show?
No time soon. No, there's got to be way more like Seanchan setups. Just maybe next season, but like no time soon. Long hike off a short plank. Yes, that's the saying. Thank you, chat.
So I really like this sort of Littell and Luca relationship. Just how he kind of ended up with someone who's perfect for him when he wanted Nynaeve. And sort of the parallels between Nynaeve and Littell and how they like kind of browbeat him and like control his life kind of and overpower him a little bit, but how he kind of likes that. That's what he wants in a woman. Yeah,
he has a type. And yeah, I mean, there was like a literal hair-pulling cat fight in the street between Littell and Nynaeve. Like, they're very, very similar women. And he has a type. Luca does. And I do like for him and for Littell that they did find each other, even though I'm a little annoyed that it was like probably her jealousy over how much he was pining after Nynaeve that like drove her to do that. Like, kind of like a Fael and Barrelane dynamic, but like more petty and less awesome potentially. And it's fine. I'm glad that they're attached and that little story is playing out in the background of everything else.
Lucas is it's one of those background characters that I'm actually like, okay, that's a background character with an actual like background story. He's not quite Bail Domon levels of character, but he's not sort of a slightly more minor character than that.
I would put him in the same general category as Domon, because he's been around for almost as long and he's alive through the end, and so many different characters cross paths with him. He's not as much fun, not as personable, but I believe in him as a background character in a way that a lot of the innkeepers are kind of like Innkeeper number 7, even though technically I know RJ wrote them a little D&D backstory campaign. They're still just NPCs. But Luca actually feels fleshed out, like he could have been a main character if the focus was not on, the people it's on.
Yeah, and we've also given him the background story of the fallen tinker and sort of fleshed that out a little bit in our own headcanon.
And someone somewhere online was adding to that, saying it would really make sense for a tinker looking for the song to start a caravan of people who actively perform and sing and like do performance arts. And like, what a twist on seeking the song to become a traveling circus act. And I was just like, this headcanon is so real. It ties up everything. The
really
bright
does.
Colors, the performance act, the never sitting still, the expansive creativity, the lack of more than just bouncers as far as armed guards go. Like, they are definitely a runaway kind of people. It makes so much sense for him to be a former Tuatha'an who's just like, I'm going to find this song my own way, on my terms. This is my song. And
he doesn't really believe in the way of the leaf all that much, right? Like,
no, he sees it as an allegory at best. And that's why he's the circus master.
Right.
He controls the whole song of like a 200 person caravan, and he wants a big top, ring that he can circus master from. Like, that's who he is. That is his song.
But in a lot of ways, I feel like Jordan is saying, hey, these are the various groups the Aiel people could become, right? You've got the Gen, you've got the Aiel that we know and love, you've got the Tinkers, and then the Tinkers can fracture into like Aram on one hand or like Luca on the other hand, and then you've got the Sea Tinkers that ended up in Tremalking, Right. And there's just you take this one group of people that had the way of the leaf and spread them through the breaking. You're going to have all these different versions of it in all these different iterations. And they're going to change drastically. And I like the idea that Luca's just another branch on that tree. And that's one of the reasons we get a bunch of him.
Yeah. Yeah. It just makes the world more rounded and fleshed out and detailed. And there's no reason not to adopt it.
And then Matt sees dead people.
Yeah. He just suddenly starts responding to dead people's shades on the road. I mean, they don't cast shadows, but like suddenly the road is full of people and he is dodging them. And then they vanish as soon as someone calls into question what he's doing. And it's creepy.
When Tuon's like, why are you jumping around weirdly like that? And he's like, I'm trying to dodge all these people. And they're not there.
It's so unnerving.
I'm not entirely sure. Are they walking directly at him or are they walking at a 90-degree angle to him? Is this a crossroads, perhaps?
Oh, I thought they were walking straight at him.
Okay.
I don't think this is a crossroads in any way, shape, or form. I think it's starting to spill out beyond just the crossroads.
Well, I will say it is a rising sun, so it is either at the rising sun or setting sun.
Oh, is it? Is it at dawn?
It was a short walk away from the rising sun to town, along with a hard-packed road. So in that paragraph, he says it is a rising sun. So we're in one of the transitions. So not twilight, but dawn. Yeah.
So they're appearing at dawn. No, twilight is at both. Twilight is for dawn and dusk.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I've looked this up. It's a thing. I know, it's very hard to believe, but dawn and dusk are how you distinguish which time of day it is. Twilight just describes the amount of light.
It is really hard to Google twilight.
Oh, oof, yeah. Thanks, that bitch from Mormon land who couldn't even be bothered to research the area she was writing a book set in.
It's still a better love story than Twilight.
But it's not, because it's literally Twilight. It's not.
No, I mean Tuon and Mat.
Oh, yes. Such a better love story than Twilight.
But yeah, this is basically, again, another just the dead are rising. We're in the crossroads of Twilight. I think Jordan is perhaps making a point here again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That, I mean, the world is decaying, right? Like, we are really on the verge of the last battle. We have essentially the events of one more book, which take place maybe over a month. And then we're into the last battle, the first events of the last battle. Pretty much down to the world is is decaying and falling apart. And the balefire isn't helping, Rand.
No, it's not. Yeah, and there in chat is a nice description. The diffused light from the sky during the early evening or early morning when the sun is below the horizon and its light is refracted by the Earth's atmosphere. The time of day when the sun is just below the horizon, especially the period between sunset and dark.
Okay, so it's the fact that the sun is providing light, but not visible.
Not direct.
Not direct, yeah.
It's only the diffuse sky glow, that portion of the process. Because there's like sun below horizon, sun above horizon is a binary, but there is that fuzzy transition point.
When you're getting, refracted light from the atmosphere, right? And it's like, it's still sun's light lighting things up, but the sun's not technically lighting you up directly.
Yeah, you cannot burn your eyeballs on the sun during twilight, which is good because you shouldn't do that.
So question, do vampires survive twilight, right? Because it's in most movies, they can usually wait until they get the direct sunlight on them, right? Like
it's all about a direct beam from the sun. Twilight is fine canonically with like every vampire story that the sun hurts them. Twilight is fine.
Which is weird because, the sunlight hits the atmosphere and refracts before it doesn't go directly through, right? Like,
but no.
The atmosphere
and then
is
there's
in
the
the way.
argument that moonlight should get rid of them too.
Right, totally.
It's also sunlight. So maybe vampires aren't real and the lore is nonsense.
And starlight is actually just other, suns.
And then, starlight is literally starlight, and our sun is a star because that's how astronomy works.
God, yeah. It's ridiculous. Who's making up these myths anyway? They should need some consistency.
Yeah, folklorists are not going to be providing that anytime soon.
Unlike Jordan, who's got, what are the flying?
Drakkar?
Instead of vampires. And those make total sense.
Those absolutely make sense. There's nothing inconsistent about Drakkar at all. or really about any of his magic. He has a completely watertight magic system and world building, and there's nothing loose or strange about it at all.
Okay, so moving back to the book, there's a little tidbit here that I'd actually never noticed before. It's that Aludra is talking to a salt vendor.
You hadn't noticed that before.
No. Well, I mean, I noticed, but I was like, okay, well, why does she, I guess she wants some salt or something, right? It's because saltpeter, which is found in the salt mines, is an ingredient in gunpowder. And so she's negotiating for a gunpowder ingredient.
Yep, she is stocking up on the base ingredients from which she can make fireworks. Yeah, I always caught that and thought it was an awesome, subtle little nod, because Matt has no idea what it's about, and Jordan is just such a slow burn with the fireworks thing, but it's like, oh yeah, she's getting bulk ingredients. She's getting the gritty black stuff that she needs to make the sparkle booms.
Sometimes I get in the POVs a little too easily, especially Matt's, where I just take what he assumes for granted. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'll assume that as well. And then I have to like break out of that mindset again, especially around Matt, because he's so much fun to read that it's hard to be like, OK, what is he bullshitting out?
Yeah, I mean, he is being very entertaining in this chapter, what with thinking about how he was pretty sure he had promised to take Tuon shopping, and she was very sure that he had promised to take her shopping. And that's just what he's going to go with. And he's pretty sure he's in charge, but why is he following after them? And like, he's being very entertaining. And so, yeah, the Aludra snippet that goes by is very easy to lose in the clutter and chaos of what's happening.
I don't have a lot for a little bit. Just a lot of descriptions of Jurador and Lady Athelaine. Athelaine.
Oh god, that is an old English name right there.
Yeah.
With the AE at the beginning.
Right. It's like Ether and Elaine.
Yeah. Athelaine. That would be how they would say it in something like The Last Kingdom.
Which, again, is not someone who was ever brought up again after.
No, she's just an example of what it means for the Seanchan to have an easy time with conquest. Like, this town swore the oaths of return and offered to pay a salt tax without even being asked. Like, this is what the countryside being depressingly accepting looks like, is random ladies that are just like, sure, you're my overlord now, big deal.
1% privilege right there. They're just paying their way out. It's like... Even a change of rulers doesn't really affect them. Which, I mean, in fairness, the Seanchan don't do a lot to change how things run in general, other than taking away your channeling daughters.
It's very British Empire. If you take the magic out of it, it's very like, we just want to move in and install our guy on top. Otherwise, you keep doing what you're doing. You just accept that our guy is on top of the thing, but you don't restructure the whole thing from the bottom up.
Yeah, I feel like it starts that way.
Yes, starts that way. Definitely a caveat for sure.
And there's certain populations that just get wiped out.
Yeah, I'm specifically thinking of British India, because they had such a complex and sprawling like administrative empire state that like the British just kind of like co-opted it without really reinventing the wheel. But yeah, there are a double fistful of genocides that would argue for a slightly less orderly transition of power on the British's part. Oh, the legends, maybe more like the Roman Empire. Maybe that's more like what I'm thinking of, because that was their policy generally.
I feel like I brought that up.
Yeah. And it has been, a week, so we're on time to think about the Roman Empire.
Right. Yeah, you're right. No, I haven't thought of the real Roman Empire. Isn't it like every day in the meme? See,
I have no idea.
This whole thing came out about like, do men think about the Roman Empire every day?
How often do they think about it?
How often do you think? And me, I never think about the fucking Roman Empire, right? Like, until this meme came out. And now I feel like I'm thinking about it every goddamn day, because people are asking me, do you think about the Roman Empire every day? And so it's like, don't think of a purple elephant. Well, of course I'm going to fucking think of the purple Roman Empire.
Yeah. I am fascinated by antiquity. I think about the Roman Empire on a daily basis. Often in the summer, I'm getting mad at July and August for existing.
Right. The month
the
names.
Calendar thing just really pisses me off a whole lot. There's a lot. I spend a lot of my time getting angry at the Roman Empire.
I'm 100% on board for restructuring the calendar to be 13 months, 28 days long. You get one free day at the end of the year where it's not a day of the week. And that way, the first of every month is a Monday. If you know what day of the month it is, you know what day of the week it is. All months are the same length.
I would love this so much. It'd be so great.
Getting paid once a month would be the same as getting paid every other week. Instead of having that weird, like, sometimes it's 31 days, sometimes it's 28.
I bet the Seanchan have this calendar. They seem like the kind of efficient people that would have an actually good calendar.
I mean, their weeks are 10 days, right? So maybe it's just all multiples of 10.
Yeah, their weeks are 10 days. Well, are Seanchan weeks 10 days? I guess probably.
That's a good question.
They still speak the same language despite all the... So they probably have the same calendar.
Arthur Hawkwing didn't leave that long ago. And I think he instituted the calendar, much like the...
Oh, yeah. The current count is since his empire happened, I believe. So, yeah. Yeah. But regardless, the Seanchan are very... I keep describing them to people who aren't going to watch the series as the Americans, just because I'm trying to get through like as quickly as possible. Like, they're ridiculous colonizers who are based on slavery. But really, in so many ways, they are more like the Roman Empire. And yeah, I imagine that their colonization process happens in waves, right? First, you show up and let people keep their customs. Then you take away a few customs. Then you take away a few more. Then you start making memes about how antiquated and nonsense their customs are. And pretty soon...
It only takes about a generation or two.
Yeah, exactly. Religion. The founding fathers thought about the Roman Empire multiple times a day. See, this is one of the reasons I think about the Roman Empire all the time, is because I'm looking at our government, which was very much structured by people who thought about the Roman Empire. So it's like, how can you not? Maybe it's just my autistic brain, but I'm like, I can't not trace the threads back to the Roman Empire just like reflexively. Like, you assholes. Why the domes? Why do we need domes and columns everywhere? Why?
Boobies and penises. That has nothing to do with the Roman Empire. That's just boobies and penises.
That's a good point. You want to play a game of dick boob?
We call it politics, see? Where we whip out our columns and compare how long they are.
How many boobies does your city have?
Oh, Jesus. This is turning out to be a rough chapter for tangents.
Okay, so we're shopping for silk. There's no ethical issues at all with silk or shopping. Matt actually does a little window shopping along the way. He thinks about just a little embroidery. Like, he wouldn't have passed up a new silk coat or three. The dice. Just a little embroidery. The dice. Like, he's very much doing both at the same time, and it's quintessential Matt. We love it.
Yeah, very much. Again, these are Ebudar people. They're described as Ebudari with their knives, and the customs might be slightly different than in the city.
Yeah, it's regional differences for sure. This is a different town entirely, but it's still the same nation. Did you have any thoughts on why Tuon and Seanchan leave one stall in an extra level of huffiness? Like, Tuon plucks one fold of silk and let it drop as she hurried away without trying another. As she turned away without trying another, Seanchan gave the stout shopkeeper such a stare before following that the woman started back in affront. Like, they go to a bunch of shops and handle all the silk. This one shop they go to, they touch the silk and are like, "Oh my god, how fucking dare you? This is a poly blend. Get the fuck out. We're leaving." But how do you do a silk fraud when you don't have polyester or some shit to blend into it? What's a good fraudulent thing to do with silk?
The only thing I'm thinking is right after that, Edicina covers her face again, which means that Tuon may have seen Edicina with her face uncovered. And so maybe Tuon basically... It had nothing to do with the silk. It was the fact that she saw Edicina with her face uncovered, and she knew that would be enough of a distraction to maybe lose Matt or to take off.
Tomlin's not right for it, because he shrugs about it and then sees the cowl fall down and then get pulled back up.
Oh, that's a good point. You're right. That is afterwards.
But I'm thinking it's like what Religion's saying. It's somehow they noticed that the thread count was wrong, which I was learning, speaking of Roman Empire shit, I was learning recently that one of the reasons why silk made a killing on the Silk Road was because in China, they wove it to a certain thickness. But in Italy, they had a very different climate that they were using it in. So they would actually reweave it in places like Constantinople. They would actually unweave the Chinese silk and reweave it to a Roman weight, which was much lighter, had a much, much wispier weight to it because they were using it in a very different way. And so you could make like a fuck ton more silk essentially by doing that because you're spreading it out. So maybe this merchant was selling something like that where they had like massively thinned out and rewoven the silk thread to be a lighter thread count, and they could tell with their fancy lady fingers.
That's as good as any theory I have. And the only thing I think is there was something about the shopkeeper that was offensive to Seanchan culture, but I don't see anything. There's no description of her.
Maybe she could actually channel and Tuon's spidey senses went off.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good
I don't
one.
like her. She gives me the uncanny valley feeling. I'm making a thin slice judgment.
There's a point here. The Gleeman had not taken to drink again, but Lopen and Aram complained about him remaining awake till all hours, burning a lamp so he could read and reread his precious letter. What could be so fascinating in a letter from a dead woman? A dead woman light. Maybe those people on the road. No, he was not going to think about that at all. So yeah, I mean, this is Moraine's letter. And Mat asked, right, so there's a little confusion I saw online. People were asking, didn't Mat already ask Tom about the letter? And he did. He asked, who is the letter from? And Tom said, it's from Moraine. But at that point, the seal on it was unbroken, which means Tom had seen the seal was from Moraine, but had never opened it up and hadn't read the thing about when Mat asks about it. So at that point, he would not have known to share. But at this point, he does. And basically, he's just trying to get noticed. He's basically flaunting it in Mat's face, waving it under his nose, waiting for Mat to ask about it, because he knows every day that goes by that Mat doesn't ask about it, Moraine is being kept and tortured and abused by the Aelfin and Eelfin.
Yeah, that's all he can think about. But the letter says don't do anything until Mat asks. So he's stuck in a loop, which inherently is making him more and more obvious to Mat as someone who maybe he should be asking questions of. Now he's to the point of wasting resources and annoying Mat's body servants. And I'm sure that this isn't conscious on Tom's part. He just has nothing else to think about. And so that's just what's happening.
Oh, I think it's definitely conscious on Tom's part. He wants to go rescue her, so he's just doing everything he can to get Mat's attention with the letter. Yeah. He's on the level of I don't take anything he does for granted. He knows exactly the effect.
Well, as you said, I like to get sucked into believing the POV that I'm in. And so I'm like, yeah, Tom, you're being weird for reasons that are subtle. And you're like, no, God's eye view. Who are we talking about? Yeah, no, I agree with that. So yeah, Mat has now lost Tuon and Selucia. They have managed to give him the slip, and he freaks out, and then he does a random spin and turn and walk. Which,
again, is very, very good foreshadowing for the rescuing of Moraine. I think there's a lot of good foreshadowing here in the rescuing of Moraine, because, right, how does he get out of the tower? How does he escape? How does his luck work? Well, they take away his dice, and then he does the spin and turn in a circle. That's how he knows it's going to work.
He's workshopping the base skills he's going to need to actually take on that boss fight. Yeah.
And that's why he can't ask yet, right? Because he hasn't developed these kind of skills.
He's not ready. He is not ready. But yeah, this exact moment is part of how he becomes ready.
And so, of course, he's pointing right at Tuon's location.
Yeah, no problem. No difficulty
problem
at all.
Yeah, of course it works. And so he runs in, and basically the shopkeeper's about to throw them out because they're not speaking, because they'll sound like Seanchan and they don't want to be discovered. And so they're dressed in rags, basically, because they've been traveling in their clothes, the same clothes they've had this whole time. They didn't go packing when he kidnapped them.
No, they got stuffed into a rug and that was it.
So yeah, the shopkeeper's like, it's very Pretty Woman, right? Like, you don't make enough money to shop here. And then Mat walks in. He's like, oh, yeah, they do. And throws gold down on the counter.
Mm-hmm. And then tells them, I'm done playing mind games. This is where you're doing the shopping, which I'm sure that at any point, if they'd been able to pull that, the next shop would have been the end one. They were just waiting for an opportunity to play out this little mind game. They weren't looking for the best silk shop in town. they were looking for an opportunity to play mind games with Matt and see how far they could push him. And hopefully they would land at a place with a decent product by the end, given the nature of the district.
And maybe looking for an opportunity to run away a little bit and see how he reacted.
Yeah, I don't think that they would have run away all the way, but they really want to see how he reacts to a challenging situation. And if running away was the opportunity that presented itself to test him, I think they would do it. But mostly I think it was just to see how he would react if they vanished into a store. And then they can buy the silk that is actually, they do want that. Tuon's into seeing how this is going to play out according to the pattern. She's not going to force it too much, but she does want to see Matt flustered.
Yeah, so he buys silk. He got back much less of his purse than he expected, which, of course, if you've ever gone shopping for clothing.
I mean, yeah.
Silk clothing, yeah, is expensive.
Yeah. Clothing in general, silk clothing in particular. And I mean, this isn't even clothing. This is just fabric, but it's silk. So, and you know that Tuon's picking some of the nicest stuff that particular shop has to offer.
Oh, yeah, totally. And she spends like an empress. She doesn't care what the money costs.
Like, what could it cost? Like $5?
Right? It's just a bolt of silk.
Yeah.
And she makes him carry it, of course. It's very, again, this is just mall shopping. I swear to God, Jordan wrote this after Harriet dragged him to the mall and made him like carry all her shit and buy it. And
Sephora bags.
Totally.
Definitely.
We've all been there, men.
Yeah, I observed that when I was at the mall, suffering through the smell assault that a mall is. And it never made sense to me. And I never had enough money to indulge in such things. But I saw it. It was definitely a very regular part of the mall people watching scenery.
I will say my senior year of high school, when I finally got a car, I did spend a lot of time at the mall going to the movies with my two good friends, Alex and Mo. Yep, that's when I got real nerdy. Kind of outside. It's when I got outside of the just book nerds and got into like more movie nerd type stuff, a little more mainstream nerd. Mm-hmm. But also when I discovered anime, which I have since kind of stopped watching. It was fun for a little while, but there's so much content out there. I don't know how I can't keep up with it. And of course, my completeness, I want to watch it all, right? Like, yeah, it's very frustrating that there's more out there than I could ever possibly watch.
So why even bother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel about Wheel of Time creator content, right? Like, I would love to watch all of it, but there is so much, and I can't pick and choose because everybody out there is my friends, and so it's like, oh, why even try?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I feel terrible for picking and choosing. But also, sometimes I get really anxious and worn out, and I want something comforting to listen to. And so listening to my actual friends talking about what has always been my comfort go-to content franchise is just like, all right, I guess I'm working through back catalogs erratically because no one's releasing anything, and I have no other spoons in my brain. So, like, what in the back catalog nonsense am I going to find today?
And when it comes to back catalogs, we are the masters.
Nobody else has this many episodes.
Nobody else comes close. Some people have surpassed us in terms of like where they are in the books. Like I think the Allie and Gus are getting close.
Yeah, and Danny and Brett.
And Danny and Brett passed us a while ago. But I think they've been doing like 2.
Yeah, they do more than us.
Yeah. Sure. So I think in overall episodes, we are the champions.
Yeah. But yeah, it's annoying when I really want to listen to my friends and I've run out of their content. It's like, don't you realize? But then sometimes it will push me to get around to another one of my friends' podcasts. And it's like I'm forced into it, but then I get addicted to that. And then I get mad at them when they stop releasing new content. And like, it's a delightful cycle. I love you all.
Oh, Allie and Gus have slowed down a bit.
They just have a lot going on, and they added the Hunger Games, and I'm attempting to convince them to hire me as an editor, but apparently somebody is having a hard time letting go of his baby, even though there are only so many hours in the day. So
Gus, that's why Aurelia's got the hours. That's why we let her do it.
Because I'm doing the Hot Nuance podcast with Allie, I've been able to keep dropping that Easter egg of like, sounds like you guys are going to need an editor with all these projects you're doing. So yeah, Gus, if you're listening, this is the universe telling you, hire me, hire Aurelia. It is time. Speaking of time, they get back to the circus just in time to hear about Rena stabbing Egyanan in the back.
It's Egyanan. She's been hurt. Come quickly. Her wig hangs askew.
Domon says, I would be chasing after the bitch if my hand wasn't literally keeping her from bleeding out. Like, he's there with the love of his life bleeding out in his arms, and he looks so angry and afraid, and Matt's like, oh God, if I get between him and vengeance, I will be torn limb from limb. Like, it's a very, like, dramatic, intense moment, because Baal Domon is like Tamal Thor, right? He does not get flustered. He is a rock in the storm. Like, he will tell you that you're insane and bail out of Falma when it's on fire. But, like, for him to be this upset is like, he's watching his future wife die. It's not great. And then, of all people, fucking another Illianer shows up. I love Baal Domon yelling in a Terabon in an Illian accent for help, and then Teslin arrives with the same accent. It just pleases me so much to actually have two significant Illianer characters like doobie-dooing at each other.
Doobie-dooey, do-do-do, I do.
It's just excellent.
Where the hell is Jolene?
Jolene! I'm assuming taking a bath.
Okay. Yeah, we never get anything.
I don't know. There's no explanation about that.
But I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. It was just like, did Jordan forget about Jolene? Except he points it out, Jolene do be better than this, right? She says that.
Yeah, I'm assuming she's just didn't get the call as fast, just didn't run as quickly, was not able to be reached. But yeah, he says, where be that bloody eyes to die? I be right here, Baal Domon. Like syntax and everything. I am right here. I'm meeting you where you are, dude. I got you.
Where be I be?
Yes.
Jordan had fun with that accent for sure.
Oh, yeah. Just as much as we all do.
Uh-huh. Because literally, it's like the pirates, right? It is like he took the stereotypical pirate accent and just gave it to a whole nation. And was like, yeah, that's a nation of pirates. Moving on.
It's so excellent.
It's like because he's like, I did the French for the Kyrian and the English for the Andorrans. And, you know, you got these people over there and those people. Gosh, what am I going to do for this nation? I'm out of accents. Yeah, talk like a pirate day. I think I'll do like.
That's probably exactly what happened. And he's like, not the people who are entirely boat people. We can't give them the pirate accent because that would be tropey. We got to give it to just a regular nation.
Sure, right.
They got a port,
that's why he remixes
like a regular nation. Yeah.
Yeah, he would never give a pirate accent to the Seanchan or the Sea Folk. No, it would have to go to some landlocked nation, but still give it to a captain.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And a pirate.
Scallywag.
Matt's accustomed to being around people channeling because his medallion gets cold. And he's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so Teslin does a good healing, kind of blows her cover a little bit with the show folk, but like they're slowly picking up on all of the inconsistencies with Matt's party, and they're gonna keep their mouths shut, broadly speaking, until Seanchan actually questioned them. Like, they're show folk. They're not gonna go running to the authorities.
So I was thinking about how the dice battered the inside of Matt's head. They had not stopped. The game was not played out yet. How much like boss battle music in a video game the dice in his head are. Right. Yes. Or like danger music when you're walking through like copse of trees and you hear and you're like, oh shit. Okay, where's the bad guy coming from? Because he's coming from somewhere. And it's that rumble of basically the pattern saying, you know, in the video game that is Matt's life, because Matt's life is more like a video game than anything else. Yeah, he gets to get reborn when he dies multiple times. He's got at least 3 lives. Yeah, he remembers things from prior iterations of the game. Metagaming. Right. Totally. He metagames. He's got a cheat code, right, that he can use and just change the odds in the machine. Right. According to Pants, we are currently at 16 of 22 mentions of dice. We've got a rolling counter going. Nice. I like that. So what we learn is why. Why did this happen? Why did Rena stab Egyanan before slipping away? Because she could have just slipped away. That would have been a much less dramatic way to slip away without stabbing someone. Why did she do it? And this is when we get the information delivered to Mat that Suldam can channel. This is when he learns that Tuon can learn to channel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, bloody hell, I'm marrying someone who could be an Aes Sedai, which of course she never will be, right? I can't imagine any future where she becomes a well,
taking back the Empire is going to require some twists and turns. And this is also Tuon learning this information, presumably for the first time. I think it's fair to assume that she didn't know before because she's had such a, rarefied royal experience of training. I don't know how many Suldam have figured it out over the centuries. I'm sure some have, but I really doubt Tuon had. But she learns this in the same moment as Mat. They hear this information together because of how the timeline plays out. And she has to go sit and think with that for a bit. And then she comes down on the wrong side. But for the moment, she just has to go sit and think about it. Because it's a massive world-shaking revelation that someone almost got killed over. Like, that it's real because the woman has a knife sticking out of her back. This is a real threat. This isn't a rumor. This is an actual fear that a Suldam has, is that you're going to find out. And now Egyonin has said it, so that way she won't be killed next time, because now she's not the only one who knows. The secret is out.
So why is Rena running now?
I think the proximity to Seanchan troops. I think she sees the gap as being small enough that she can make it. But other than that, I don't know what triggered this moment. It seemed like she was trying to find her life with them for a second. And I think just the opportunity was too close and too tempting.
So do you think Jordan took Rena's name by taking the words runner and just altering it to be Rena?
I mean, her arc is kind of defined by running away. Runner. I could see it. She's really what she does for the plot is define a coward who is running away from problems that our heroes run towards. That is what she does for the plot. So that's not the most out there name origin you've come up with.
After the book Origins came out, now it's just fun to make stuff up because we know his thought process was just completely random in some cases, where he just literally took a word and altered a letter or two and was like, yeah, that's what it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had some very flimsy reasoning on some of those.
Very flimsy reasons for some of them, and that's what was in the notes.
Yeah.
So, how many of these were just as flimsy? He just didn't write it down. He's just a letter or two away from a pun. And as we established early in the episode, Jordan likes his puns.
Ugh, he's such a dad. I know he doesn't ever biologically have kids, but he was a dad to all of us enough that
yes, he was.
It just happened, Because I'd say that as the storyteller, broadly speaking, you're going to see that as a paternal figure when you're curling up with a book and letting it sing you to sleep. That's a paternal voice that's all coming in. So he was all of our dad in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, he reads us all to sleep. I mean, there's a little bit of Michael Kramer and Kate Redding doing that as well, but they are reading his books.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's a performance, as Michael Kramer would say.
Which is a very inappropriate thing, but I'm not going to say it because this is not Queers of Time. Those people are filthy, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say what I was thinking because we are not filthy like they are. That's been my latest comfort podcast. My God, they are filthy.
No, you can cut it out, but you got to tell me what you were going to say.
No, I forgot.
Damn you. No, bullshit.
What was I talking? Okay, back to the books. Oh, yeah, Rena also rode down a horse handler, F in chat for the horse handler that got trampled by Rena running away.
Right, what a bitch.
And he doesn't have a name. We don't ever ask how he did. It's just presumed that he died. She just ran a man down for the crime of being stop with the property of the circus.
Yeah, that's such a dick move. I don't know what to say other than just why I don't get why Rena became such a dick. Why couldn't she just? I guess she just couldn't accept the fact that she could channel, right?
Well, she's a Suldam. She's inherently a dick. She broke Egwene.
Right.
She's not a good person who suddenly snapped. She's a bad person who almost had a redemption and then 180'd on her 180. I feel as the trainer person, she sees people as objects, the horse handler. It feels very Black Aja or even Red Aja, just treating the guards like objects kind of thing. Of just well, it's just a man. This is just a horse handler. He's not important, but Yeah. You could have just swerved the horse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I understand that that's sort of a trope in fantasy where you ride somebody down to escape, right? Like, and the horses are dangerous. They can ride over something. They can stomp on somebody, and a horse stomping on you will kill you.
They are very heavy.
And especially when they have metal shoes on. Metal shoes crush bones pretty easily.
Yeah. Horses can hurt you without trying. When they are trying,
and they can
oof.
Yeah. There's a reason they're called war horses, and Lan rides one.
And she didn't
right? Like,
get a war horse. She's just grabbing some random horse. But like, still, using a horse as a weapon, even when they aren't trained for it, is, it's bad. So yeah, F in chat for random horse handler who got run down, because we just needed to establish that Rena is in fact the worst. And Matt's response to this is to say, hey, Luca, pack everyone up, everyone scatter, run to the 9 corners of the world, just scatter like ants, scatter like cockroaches with the light turned on, which none of them do. It's hilarious. They're like, wow, he's very dramatic. And then,
yeah.
And like there's a line earlier where Luca is like freaking out and Matt thinks, well, no one takes Luca as seriously as he takes himself. And then like here, a few pages later, like Luca and everyone else is like, wow, Matt takes himself way more seriously than all of us take him. Like, cause they are just such mirrors of each other. Like Matt goes down a Luca path in another life, in another world, you know?
Totally. They also don't understand that, like, I think Tuon is the Empress, right, and is hunted, and, like, the powers that are going to become to bear on them if they are discovered sheltering her. Like, he hasn't told them they're sheltering the kidnapped Empress of the Seanchan.
No, they have. Well, they've
because they still think...
Yeah, because
they've told a couple of them, like Luca, right?
Yeah, Luca specifically knows.
Right.
And Luca's the person he's
but, like,
killing
the rest of the people don't. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Luca's specifically like, nah, we're good. But yeah, Matt is like, you all need to run away, and then I'm going to go kill this bitch, and then we'll come back and run away also. And like, it's a whole bunch of Matt completely misreading how everyone else is going to take his instructions in this moment.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, he wants to make sure, they're like, do we take Tuon? He's like, yeah, take Tuon, or else she won't be able to marry me. Right. And she's all pleased.
Yeah.
That she's like still kidnapped, I guess.
Well, because setting her free has to be done in the right way at the right time.
Right.
Because again, it's not just setting her free from his captivity, it's setting her free from the trap that is Seanchan.
Right.
But yeah, he's really falling for her at this point. He's going beyond prophecy into like, man, I want to know why she's smiling at me right now. Like he is falling for her, like in an organic way at this point.
She's got secret smiles, and all the Go playing they've done has really been like bonding time for them. And yeah, he finds her interesting and mysterious and sexy. Yeah,
he's fallen for her, and she's not unhappy about that situation. She's like, no, I want to stay with you. I'm very content to let the situation as it is play out. The pattern will take us apart soon enough.
So, Demondred is tracking.
Okay.
Clearly using channeling. That's the only way he would be able to figure out which way she's going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sorry, Vannon is, Vannon. So Vannon's tracking her, and of course, Matt rides up, and Vannon doesn't take the time to stop and tell him where he's going. He's like, no, just keep walking. If we're going to catch up with her before she reaches Koromon, which is, I guess, the nearest big town, we need to go as fast as we can, because she is pushing her horse to the point of death. Yeah, she's going to make it no matter who she has to kill to do it. And it's going to be the Dark One's own luck getting us there. And Matt's like, all right, hold my ale. Let's do this. He just says we're going to make it. And because he's a main character, you know that's how the chapter's going to play out. So then they do this thing with the horses where they walk on the animals for half a mile, trot half a mile. Then they do the same at a canter, then at a run, and then back to a walk. So walk, trot. Walk, canter, walk, run, walk. I'm not really sure. No, it works the other way.
I think it goes walk, trot, canter, run. I think they build up and down.
I think it's walk, trot, canter, trot, run, trot, walk, trot.
I don't know. I'm not a horse person. I'm assuming that whatever they do doesn't kill the horses and is sound by horse people standards.
So I just was wondering if you had any insight on that, if it's like a real thing that you can do,
or
if it's
no idea.
Yeah, okay.
I know so little about horses. Like, I know to not feed them. Like, I know how you got to feed them with a flat palm. never get behind them, and I've ridden them like 5 times in my life. I'm not a horse person. But chat's saying walk, trot, canter, gallop, and that's being agreed upon. So it's something to do with helping them.
Oh, it's just a half mile of each. I see.
Yeah, so they're like speeding up and slowing down so that way the horses don't get too worn out, and they go by half mile intervals on each phase. I'm sure that because I mean, it's something that Robert Jordan criticizes repeatedly is how horses get treated like superhuman conveyances in most stories, and how there's actually realistic limitations to what you can do with horse travel. So I'm sure this was well researched. I just have not replicated that research.
Okay. Do we know what Robert Jordan's experience with horses was, if any? I think mostly just reading, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, he's from South Carolina, so I would imagine that, like, it's rural. Someone's got a horse. You get to bop around on a horse. Yeah,
I guess he did. Yeah, he grew up in an area where horses might be accessible, or at least people with horses would be accessible.
Yeah, like agrarian regions are horsey, kind of. But, Origins probably knows. So they get to the nail-biting finish. Renna is managing to run up the last slope. Everything's desperate. And then Matt's got a guy there who's like, I will kill this woman without hesitation, but I want you to tell me to do it, because that's how the chain of command works. And so Matt feels responsible and feels a part of his soul die. Even though he literally doesn't pull the trigger, the word coming out of his mouth is his responsibility. So he does the ultimate general thing, and it happens, and she dies, and it's like, fuck you, bitch. You suck so bad. You deserved a slower death.
She does get 2 arrows into her, though. There is that, like, she gets shot, and she has that moment where she tries to push herself up off the horse, and she takes a second arrow.
Yeah, 2 arrows
through the neck.
Two different soldiers are like, nah, we are not missing this shot for Lord Mat. Lord Mat wants her dead. She's going to be dead.
So I guess the first one's a crossbow bolt. The second one is an arrow.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of cool that they can both hit that target, and they correct. Didn't hit the horse.
Yeah, it's a moving target that is changing in response to the first impact. That second shot is very talented.
Remember, folks, always double tap your soul dom.
Yes, very much. Always double tap the magic slavers.
And so, yeah, and that stops the dice, right? Is when he says, shoot her, the dice stop.
And that is the end of the dice for the chapter. Not the end of the chapter, just the end of the dice.
And as far as we know, the body makes it to the sea.
Fish food.
And disappears. Fish food. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And honestly, after watching episode 6 of season 2, it's actually very satisfying to read her die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now there is a face to be angry at, and it's like, yeah, you fell into a creek and got washed away into the sea as a nameless corpse with no grave whatsoever. Like, correct. That is what you deserve. Evil training, bitch. I love the performance, to be very, very clear. This actor is amazing. But
Right. Hate the character, love the actor.
Yeah. Oh my god. I would not be exercising such hatred if it was not such a good performance.
No, and like just it'll be great now to see her like downfall as she's collared in turn, and then I hope they don't kill her off quickly.
She deserves a very slow death by 1,000 cuts over many seasons.
So in dejected defeat / victory, they turn and slowly make their way back to Luca.
Yeah. Matt thinking, oh, never again, even if I die for it. Well, what if Oliver would die for it? Then you do it again, I bet.
Right. Exactly. He just doesn't want to ever be in that situation again.
Oh no, the ovaries. It makes me so much more sad.
Listen, every loss of a vagina is a loss for Matt.
So yeah, victory, defeat, and fucking misogyny. They get back to the circus, expecting the circus to be gone, expecting to be turned out of the circus. Instead, none of that happens. Everything is as it was before. All they did was go on a quick assassination mission, and literally nothing else has changed. it's very anticlimactic to how Mat had built it up in his head.
Mm-hmm. I do like that Tuon immediately notices that Mat is feeling bad about killing her, and basically, in her own way, tries to comfort him, which is basically by saying, "I forbid you to feel sad." By
ordering him to stop feeling bad. It's a nice gesture, but like Tuon.
She's trying. But it comes up with logic, which is basically like, she's a traitor. She earned the death. She betrayed the Empire. She betrayed you. Like, there was many, many reasons for her to die. She, both by my law, and my word is law because I'm the Empress, and by the fact that like she betrayed your trust in saving her and risked all of your lives, right? There was no reason not to kill her.
Right, which like I do agree with Tuon, like, but also she's misinterpreting where Mat's guilt is coming from, right? Like, he feels guilty because it's a woman, not like because it was an ally or because it was someone he knew or any of the other like reasonable reasons. It's because she was a woman. So like Tuon's reasoning is correct, but not what he needed to hear, because all those reasons are why he did it despite being a woman. So, but yeah, she cares that he hurts. That's the important part. She sees he's in pain and she does something about it, even if it's hilarious and wrong. And then we get mention of a warrant that Tuon has given Luca to help keep the circus together and coherent while she plays her games with Mat.
And of course, it says everyone in the circus is under my protection except Mat Cawthon. And she rubs that in his face.
Yeah. She's like, Mat, Julian, and Tom, you three are exempted. Everyone else is fine. Oliver's fine. Luke is fine. Your desire to protect your people is not going to be a factor. Yeah, and Luca is, of course, like, going full assimilationist, being like, I could go perform in Shandar. Wow, I could go perform for the Empress. I love being in Seanchan.
Okay, can you explain this to me? Why is Mat thinking for nothing? All for nothing, right? What he's thinking that he killed Rena. Thank you. He killed Rena for nothing. And I'm like, well, she still would have betrayed you. And the reality is, even though Tuon wrote that warrant, the people were still going to come and kill Tuon. And still would have killed all of you. Like, even though Tuon was the Empress, I guess I don't fully understand why he thinks it was all for nothing.
Because at this point, nobody knows that she's in more danger from the Empire than she is from anyone else. That whole plot of there's a contingent of the military that's going to kill you if they get their hands on you, that news hasn't arrived yet. At this point, everyone assumes that if she were to go to Seanchan military officials and reveal who she was, she would get treated well. At some point, they get the information that that's not going to work anymore, and that's why we have the big battle. But at this point, only us, the readers, would know that, and even then we have to be rereaders. Like, at this point, the Seanchan are who she would run to. It's a little... I've always disagreed with his assessment that it's for nothing, because it still allows him to keep Tuon a secret and on his terms. Because if Rena had gotten there, Tuon wouldn't have been able to say, leave me with him. She would have been taken by force for her own protection. What happens later is she would be killed as an imposter, because that's the weird propaganda war that's being fought. But Matt's wrong. It was not for nothing. This was to allow him to keep her a secret. Everyone knows she's missing. Rena would have told them right where she was. And that's really important to keep under wraps. But he doesn't appreciate the depth to which that's true, because he doesn't know about all the murder plot shit, because that comes up next book. That's my best guess anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm nodding to all of that. That all seems to be as good as anything I can come up with in terms of what's going on in his head. So she says, well, basically, you're not under my protection. And he's like, oh, she hates me. And then he looks over and she's got the little rosebuds, that was the title of the last chapter, pinned to her lapel or her shoulder, right? So she's wearing his favor. He's wearing his favor, right? There's a little bit of that, like, she's accepting his gifts. He's winning her over. But at the same time, she's, not including him in the protection clause, which to her makes sense, right? Because for her, a husband is an opponent, and he needs to be able to hold his own, and he needs to be able to, bring his own army to bear, basically, which Mat can. And so she's always going to be challenging him. She's never going to be his aide is always going to be someone to fight with for power. And I think that is the big change in her relationship with Mat, is she's like, oh my God, this is actually someone I might actually be able to trust. He's not going to send assassins after me. He's going to do what he says. He's someone that I can actually maybe, and then she doesn't say come to love, but that's basically what she's saying. It's like, oh, this isn't an opponent anymore. This can be an ally. But right now she's still thinking of him as someone she might marry and therefore an opponent. And why would you protect your opponent?
Right. But she's coming closer to it. She's like, okay, you've passed a certain number of gauntlets and challenges I've set up for you. Like, all right, I'll accept your gift. I'll put the rosebuds on my shoulder. And then I'll escalate by excluding you from my clause of protection. It's the mind games continue with her in the lead. And Saman Asai is asking a question in chat. Why was the show disbanded and you see them later in Ebudar? I don't think we see them disbanded in Ebudar. I think they go to Ebudar and perform there.
There was a different show that was disbanded and the survivors ended up in Val and Luca's show. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, that happened a while ago.
Right.
That wasn't the Seanchan who disbanded them. Do they go back to Ebudar at any point? I don't think they do. I think they're done with Ebudar for this lifetime. I think they progress forward.
Let me look up Luca's future.
Yeah, Lilligin. That was right before the Galad Nynaeve boat fiasco. Oh yeah, it is a 13-month year. 28 days to the month.
I mean, basically, I don't think we get anything else. Mat leaves the circus in Knife of Dreams. Oh, interesting. In Knife of Dreams, chapter 25, there's a death in Jurador, which is where we just were, 2 days after he leaves. So he thinks the golem's following them. So the golem does end up in Jurador and kills somebody there.
Yeah, I don't think that the circus goes back to Ebudar.
No. So we do see Petra in Ebudar. So he does leave the circus, and he is... Oh,
because him and Clarine always wanted to start an inn. They always wanted to found an inn. Mat gives them money towards that goal one day. So I bet they go to Ebudar to start an inn. They decide to leave the traveling life and settle down.
Yeah, as good as guess as any. I can go like we go. But let's see. Memory of Light. He's in a Seanchan soldier suit. Yeah, it's just at some point. So Mat gives him and Clarine a purse of gold so they can retire and buy an inn. At some point, Petra returns to Ebudar and becomes a Seanchan guard. He's guarding the gate in Ebudar when Mat returns to the city. That's such a weird Sanderson thing.
That's a very weird Sanderson thing.
That doesn't feel right to me at all. Why would he go become a Seanchan guard when he wants to start an inn and Mat gave him all the money he needs?
It's a tough economy out there, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. All right. I mean, I guess everybody's got to join the military to survive the last battle. So
it's true. Honestly, guarding Ebudar, the hospital city, might be the safest place he could be.
True. Yeah, Ebudar does come. I mean, there's a lot of places that come through relatively unscratched in the final battle, right? Other than Camelin, most of the cities and some of the Borderlander cities, most of the South goes completely untouched. All the stuff that Rand builds is pretty completely untouched, you know.
Yeah, only Camelot and the North.
Yes, the places of legend.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I guess join us next week for the final chapter. We're going to do the epilogue because it's only 2 pages, along with the final chapter and epilogue for next week. And I think I just said a palindrome. But yeah, we are. I can't wait to finish up Crossroads of Twilight, final chapter. It's Egwene getting herself in a kidnapping trap. It's
her escalating the war so that way she can fucking end it already. She's going in. She's going into the heart of the enemy camp, and it's going to be great.
Taking them down from the inside.
Yeah. I'm super excited for that plot to spin up. It's a good banger of a note to end the book on, and then we finally
Knife of Dreams. Yeah.
So excited.
Oh man, I am. By the way, so happy with how we've done with Crossroads of Twilight. I was so worried that it would be much harder than it was. It wasn't the easiest book to get through, but at times. But
no, it was upsetting a few times. Upsettingly boring. But we powered through, and we're about to get the reward of Knife of Dreams.
And then I feel like the last 3 books are just going to be like fun ride of like, here's what's going on with these characters. Here's the end of it.
It's going to be an ever accelerating slide toward the bottom. It's going to be terrifying. And they're going to be like, you know what I want to do? Read the first book again.
It's so true, though. Whenever I get to the end of the series, I'm always like, man, I want to go, like, relive the innocent farmer that is Randall Thor. And when all the characters had, like, meaningful storylines and plot lines and, you know, these were my friends. Because by the end, they're just, like, gods, right? Like, it's a whole... It's definitely a change. And
yeah, I always get to the end, and then I read New Spring, and then I read Eye of the World. Chronological. The wheel turns.
That bitch is always late yesterday, so my mic settings get changed, so I have to make sure they're changed back. Because I do omnidirectional for them, because they're sitting just in different spots in the room, and I'm just recording them with one mic. What do you think of the show so far? How was yesterday's episode? You listened to it, I haven't.
The show? Yesterday's episode?
That bitch is always late?
Oh, right. Sorry, I am really baked. I was reading chat and did not.
Oh, you missed it. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, it was fun I enjoyed it. It was fun to get to hear the engagement story from more angles, because I got to hear it, you know, from one angle, from your angle. But then their tale on the podcast was great. It's a hoot. And it's a quick edit. It's a fun, quick little snack of an edit, because like they're very chaotic. There's just one track. They have their segments that are clearly delineated. Like it's a very like snappy, quick, snacky, easy little thing to put together. It's fun. It's fun. It's cute.
I like being able to listen to it and just sort of see. It's very good insight into what my fiance thinks about life, and I also think it's a good record for the two of them to have on hand, just for like being able to go back and listen to what their life was like at a given moment, because they do both have this just the worst ADHD, and so remembering things, I feel like they lose it sometimes.
Yeah, no, there's. One of the reasons why I wish I was better at journaling is just so I could literally remember things.
But yeah, I enjoy listening to them, and I think they're pretty funny. But yeah, I guess the other big thing is we saw each other in real world outside of Teleron Riyadh.
Yeah, in person.
in person.
3D. Yeah. I had an event. I had a little party down at my house, and I invited Seth and Never to come on out and meet some of the other weird people in my orbit, like family and friends.
Yes,
like, yeah. You know me well enough now that, like, you know, bring you a little closer into the sphere and let all of these people actually see the face behind the tales of the fact that I have a podcast. Like, here's my podcast co-host. And
I very quickly learned who actually listens to the podcast, because both your mother and grandmother turned and went, "Oh, we know that voice." So I know they listen to the podcast for sure. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Neither of them know anything about Wheel of Time. So, like, they listen to it purely for the...
They love you.
Yeah.
My mother did that to me the other day. She sent me a text message about something I'd said in the podcast, and she was like, "Yes, I listen for your voice." She's no idea what's going on with Wheel of Time. No idea. Yeah. Things cute.
Yeah, and you brought Timber,
yes,
which was great, because obviously I've met Timber, and Timber is the best boy, and it's always lovely to see him. And he got to then hang out with the other dogs and the small child. That were running around. That child was all about the dogs all weekend.
Well, hey, you know, they wore each other out, and that was good for the adults because
all the parents were pleased.
Yes.
Fur and human parents alike were like, yes, dog and child interaction. Continue spinning around in circles and burning out. It was very cute, very great. And there was lots of good food.
He buried Timber in blankets.
Oh my God,
and Timber was
so
just
cute.
like laid there and took it and enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah. I was really glad you guys were able to make it out.
No, and we got to try out a new tent for us that was like a pop-up. It was huge. It was nothing I would ever backpack or like carry with me, but for car camping, it is fantastic, right? Like it was just, I could stand up in it. It fit an inflatable bed. It didn't feel like camping until the rain started getting through the outside.
Yeah.
We need a rain fly for it, but it was a super nice setup.
Yeah, you guys came out for the very, very, very last gasp of summer, right on cue as equinox is in the rear view. The rains have come back, and I am a happy little forest gremlin. I love the rain. I'm so happy. But yes, we did have our 2 camping parties have to pack up in the rain because of the weather.
But as always, it's wonderful to see you in the person, in the flesh, in the flesh, in the meat. Your meat suit is looking fantastic.
They're made of meat. It's great to get to squee with Never in person because, the engagement high is still running off. And it's just like so nice to get to see you both and squee in person because you've been out to my house before. And my mom says she would love to get to actually hang out with you two, like in a more mellow environment where there's actual conversation possible. She said, you guys seem really nice, but it is just too much to have like the level of getting to know you that she thinks would be nice. So
totally. Well, and one of the things that was hard for me too is I'm such an early to bed, early to rise now because of my job. And I know a lot of people really just started hanging out at about the time that I was like, well, I'm going to bed. That was like prime activity time. So that's something I struggle with this job is that like I really can't stay up. And also I'm getting old. I can't stay like I'm in my 40s. I can't stay up late easily anymore past my bedtime. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, I definitely was drinking coffee and pacing myself with the alcohol and making sure I had plenty of food and doing things to make sure I could stay awake. And it was a struggle because I am also very early to bed, early to rise. Brandon and I prefer that. But like, we have people here. We want to hang out with them.
Right.
Make coffee.
Right.
Like,
right.
But also my mom is a very like low social spoons kind of person. So if you really want to get to talk to her at all,
Totally.
it has to just not be at an event like that. So you guys will just have to come out sometime next summer for a much smaller, more intimate sort of gathering.
No question that she is, in fact, your mother.
Oh, my God. And my grandma, right? It's just
And
like
your grandma,
3
yeah, the
differently
two-
aged
yeah,
peas
the-
in a pod.
And of course, she spoke very highly of you and told me about all your accomplishments, editing that you saw them do when you were younger that I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that time when they had just built a music studio in the house and that was all they did was like record, eat, sleep, record, eat, sleep.
I'm like, I wonder how Radia picked up editing so fast. Your mom. Yeah, so we used to edit with her all the time in the room, and she probably saw us doing that. Oh.
Yeah, and Randy did teach me how to edit. We would do these like jam sessions, and Randy taught me how to edit in Pro Tools to like slice out the parts that were, maybe kind of good and fun to put together like into a little compilation. And of course, I was way more generous with what counted as music than he was, but like nonetheless, he definitely had me hyper focused sitting down on Pro Tools, slicing together jam sessions at a very, very young age.
So you were born into being the editor for Watt Spoilers, is what you say.
Basically, this was always my destiny.
Oh, light shining down.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's fall now, and I'm very, very happy that it's fall.
Same.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing.
My thoughts have mostly been along the line of, oh God, I have to plan a wedding. Oh God, I have to plan a wedding. Oh God, oh God. I have to plan a wedding.
Yeah, the latest That Bitch Is Always Late was all focused around like bridal facts and bridezilla stories from Reddit, and it's just like, man, there's some pitfalls out there.
See, what you have to realize is I have a tiny family and a small group of friends. Never has neither a small group of friends or a small family. And she wants most of them to be there. So, yeah, actually, Pants is pointing out, I help plan cons, so you can do a wedding. That's actually, I brought that up when we were talking about the wedding. I'm like, yeah,
treat it like a con.
There's a lot of similarities. You're gathering a group of people together in a space. They have to travel. You have to make accommodations. You have to do food. You have to, make sure everybody's notified with enough time. Like, I've made all the mistakes you can make when organizing a con. Yeah. So, I figure I should have some experience with the wedding planning. And I mean, and what are wedding costumes if not, misogynistic bridal ownership cosplay?
Yeah, you're just cosplaying the American dream wedding. It's fine. just for TV. Oh my God, Lillian, yes, hold the wedding at the con space and make everyone get their food from the food truck. Just like spoiler con. Spoiler wedding. Wedding con.
I've done it once already. I've done the planning. I'm not doing it again. That's it.
That would be hilarious.
I just call it spoiler con. I like to set up puns and then execute them.
No. No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?